Imagine this. You're in a room with thousands of other people. You're all crowded in a very tight space. You can feel the heat coming off of other people, and you feel the crowd begin to open. Suddenly, a large hole opens up in the middle of the crowd, and everyone is rushing with adrenaline. As the music begins playing, everyone rushes to the middle in what can only be described as a stampede. Everyone begins bumping into each other with intensity, and all of a sudden, you're thrown into the mix. You're then pushed and shoved, but somehow, you're okay with it. Mosh pits, as we know them, are a very large part of the concert experience. If you go to any metal, hip-hop, or electronic concert, you're likely to see some begin to form. Of course, it wasn't always this way. Mosh pits first started popping up around the 1970s during the English punk rock scene. During this time, people would hold their arms out and begin jumping up and down. This dance, called the mosh, originates from the word mash, coming from the band Bad Brains' song, banned in DC. In this song, they shout, "Mash it, mash down Babylon." As the punk rock scene began to spread over to California in the United States, more and more people started adopting this moshing dance. Over here, a familiar type of dance began to spread around, this being slam dancing. The goal of slam dancing is to strut around in a circle, swinging your arms and hitting everyone within reach. During the 80s, people began incorporating stage dives and dances called pig piles, where one person is chosen and everyone pig piles on top of them. Finally, moshing began its mainstream breakthrough with the rise of grunge music in the early 1990s. With the help of Lollapalooza, a music festival, the act began to spread like wildfire. Eventually, almost everyone was moshing to the performance on stage. It began to spread to other genres, including hip-hop and electronic. And for some reason, people began moshing to things they probably shouldn't be moshing to. An example would be the Cranberries, whose music is not really the aggressive type. Now, the mosh pit involves almost everyone at the venue, which means it's largely a group project. Any group of people you're moshing with can make or break your experience. The emotions that people feel in mosh pits can only be described as euphoric.
So what sort of emotions do you feel when you're in a mosh pit?
Taking out all my anger out, dealing with Karens all day, because, you know.
Be like, move the fuck out of the way, man, I gotta get in, you know?
Sometimes fear, sometimes excitement.
The mosh pit is known to drive people to do things that they've never done if they weren't in a mosh pit. Everyone in the mosh pit is somehow friends with each other, and if someone isn't going along with everything, they're probably going to be dealt with. There are a couple unwritten rules of the mosh pit, aka mosh pit etiquette. The most important rule is to pick up the fallen. Although mosh pits are extremely physical, no one wants to get seriously hurt. And if someone wants out of the mosh pit, you let them out. Another important thing that isn't mentioned a bunch is that if someone drops something, try your best to get it back to them. It absolutely sucks losing things, so try to be a good Samaritan. Another huge rule is to not take anything personal. Everyone is supposed to make friends, and you're not supposed to make enemies. You also need to respect event staff, know where the pit begins and ends, and don't throw stuff, which should be pretty obvious. Most importantly, please stay hydrated. It is extremely hot in mosh pits because everyone's sweating, everyone's moving around, and if you're not hydrated, things can turn south pretty quickly. Mosh pits, for the most part, generally get a good rap. Most of the time, people are just having fun and no one really gets hurt, but there are examples of how they can be dangerous. As I've said before, mosh pits are largely physical, and people during any physical activity can get hurt. According to crowd management strategies, 9 people died in mosh pit related accidents between 1994 and 2006. For example, during a Smashing Pumpkins concert in Dublin, Ireland, 17-year-old Bernadette O'Brien was crushed by moshing crowd members, and later passed away in the hospital. And probably most famously, 10 people died on November 15th, 2021 at the Astroworld Festival hosted by Travis Scott. Multiple concert goers reported that they were in fear for their life. There were so many people at the event that they had to stand on their tippy toes to breathe. This, coupled with the event staff refusing to stop the show, resulted in 10 deaths and hundreds of injuries. Another big example of a tragedy was the Pearl Jam Roskilde Festival Stampede in Denmark. It had been raining the day that Pearl Jam was supposed to headline, and it caused the grounds to become extremely muddy and slippery. 8 people passed away from asphyxiation, and 1 later passed away due to chest injuries. Now, what I'm about to say may be extremely controversial, but very few deaths are directly caused by the mosh pit itself. Very few people passed away from strictly moshing. Most of the time, people pass away because there are way too many people in one area. The main point I want to make is that a mosh pit and a crowd crush are two completely different things. A mosh pit, as we discussed earlier, is an open area in which people sort of slam into each other, usually in the middle of a large crowd. Crowd crushes are completely different, as they involve a large group of people packed together in a confined space and are unable to move. Now, in rare occasions, people can pass away from mosh pits, but I believe that a majority of these problems is due to the size of the crowd compared to the size of the venue. Devastating tragedies like these often paint a bad picture of mosh pits, even though they're not related. People's opinions on mosh pits differ. Some people love them, some people hate them. But it leads you to wonder, why do people even do this in the first place? How is the entire crowd always in some sort of gentleman's agreement that we're gonna hurt each other? How can this possibly happen? You see, people love mosh pits because it gives them an opportunity to bond with others. Now, this may sound strange because you can't have a conversation inside of a mosh pit. You can't exchange phone numbers inside of a mosh pit. You simply bond with others by participating. Surprisingly, mosh pits are often chivalrous affairs. It's at the point where everyone has reached the gentleman's agreement that we came here to have fun, and no one is going to take things too seriously. Everyone's excited to see their favorite artists, and all around, the mood is very energetic and positive. Another reason that people enjoy mosh pits is that it gives them a time to truly be free. During the creation of moshing, the main scenes that promoted the use of them were mainly punk rock and grunge bands. During this time, the bands were trying to be different than most bands of that era. They experimented greatly with their music, and they spawned a whole movement of being different and rebelling against normal society. During this period is where most people fell in love with the music, and result, fell in love with moshing. Moshing is a symbol of the message that these bands were trying to push, where it doesn't matter who you are, you deserve to try things that are different, and no one can give you crap for it. Miraculously, this idea has spread worldwide as people from all over the world participate in moshing. May it be in Tomorrowland in Belgium, or some random Denny's. People share this mutual bond. At the end of the day, mosh pits are not meant to be taken seriously. They're just another way to enjoy the concert. If you don't want to participate in a mosh pit, you don't have to be in one. Personally, I consider myself as sort of a mosh pit beginner. I've really only been to rap shows and rap festivals, so I've yet to experience mosh pits of other genres like metal. With this being said, I understand why people mosh now. Overall, it's one of the best ways that the audience can participate in the concerts. It raises the energy levels of both the audience and the performer whenever everyone's participating. I can tell you that the mosh pit is one of the most diverse places I've ever seen. There are people in there that are both half my size and also double my size. Regardless of people's size though, everyone is friends with each other. Not on like a personal, first name basis, but we all have a mutual understanding that we're having fun and we're gonna let loose a little bit. I believe that every person watching this video should try to experience one. Granted, it isn't for everyone, but the feeling of community you get between the pit walls is one to admire. Here's one last clip of me at a concert. Also, don't ask me why I'm bald in this clip, but me and my friend, we made an agreement.